Good evening. My name is Kelly Carroll, and I chair Bennington's Community Policing Advisory Review Board. I would like to introduce the other members of Bennington's Community Policing Advisory Review Board who are here for our February 27, 2025 meeting. We are in the third floor multi-purpose room at the Bennington Firehouse located at 130 River Street. So I'll start down here.
Jeff Vickers.
Lindsay Brillian.
Scott Richmond.
Kate Cost. Peggy Lamprin.
Scott Frost.
And with us tonight, we have Jean Connor, who is our Select Board Liaison, and Lee on CAT TV. So for purpose of discussion, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which also includes the previous minutes from the last meeting?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains. So carried. The consent agenda also included the minutes from the previous meeting. They were distributed ahead of time. Is there any discussion on them? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstains? So carried. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have public comment. Is there anybody, the town vision statement. Kate, would you read that?
Sure. This is the vision statement for the town of Bennington. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, and resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have public comment. We didn't have anyone that signed up. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Next on the agenda, we have the Bennington Police Department update with Chief Paul Doucette. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Paul Doucette, Chief of Police and Public Safety Director for the town of Bennington. I did enjoy my time last night at the Public Safety Forum. I enjoyed sitting on the other side of the table where you're all at now. I do enjoy when the community engages with the police and asks questions, and that there's an understanding. So kudos to all of you who worked to put that together. I realize that that's later on the agenda, but as far as an update, that is something that was planned, and we did, Lieutenant Grandy and I attended, as you all know, and we did enjoy our time here last night. Ran a little long, and then we had to answer questions and talk to people before we left, so I think we got home somewhere around 9 o'clock or so last night. It's been a long week.
Can you check your microphone?
Can you hear me?
I'm far away.
Yes. Soon to be gone. Okay, so I just want to share with all of you, it's been really busy, at the police department, and we have lots going on. So I'm gonna get right to it with all of you. First and foremost, some of you probably have seen the Bennington banner and the information that was in there. We did have an opportunity last week to go to Montpelier where they recognized K-9 Gracie and Officer Morawski and the Bennington Police Department for all of the hard work that's been going on here. And we had an opportunity to speak to Governor Scott one-on-one. We also had an opportunity to speak to Lieutenant Governor John Rogers, and separately in their offices, and that was great for me. I haven't done that since I was the president of the Vermont Association of Chiefs of Police, so it's been a while since I've gotten into their offices and had one-on-one conversations with them. So I'm really thrilled about that. I'm thrilled that they're paying attention to what's going on in the southern part of the state. And Lieutenant Governor John Rogers said to me, I said to him, "Sir, I really don't want you to forget about the southern part of the state." And he said, "Chief Doucette," he says, I'm from the other end of the state where I feel like we're forgotten sometimes also. So I will not forget about the southern part of the state. And I invited them to the Bennington Battle Day Parade 60th anniversary edition. So hopefully that they will come down and spend some time with the folks here in Bennington this summer. But Lieutenant Governor John Rogers says he'll be down before the parade. So let's hope that happens. So we had a great time when we were up there. It was so nice for our legislators to recognize the hard work of Officer Morawski and K-9 Gracie. As you've all heard me speak, we miss Gracie terribly, and but I mean, to be on the floor and have all of our legislators stand up and give a round of applause, standing ovation, it was amazing, and we appreciate the work of Representative Morrissey and our other representatives. Mike Nigro spent time with us as well. It was just great. So with that being said, where are we at with our K-9 program? So our K-9 program is moving right along. We do plan to have a new dog in place by the end of March. When I say in place, at the academy training. That is the plan. And we're making arrangements. We've met with the head trainer, and we have named Officer Robert Morawski as the K-9 handler. He'll continue to be a K-9 handler for the police department. It's a lot of work, folks, to make all of this happen. Lieutenant Grandy is going to have the pleasure of going with the lead trainer and Officer Morawski to select our new dog. The dog has to be 10 months to 12 months old in order to get into the academy, and there are other agencies that will also be going down and selecting dogs. So we're going to get started on that very soon, and the program will start, and we're hoping that by July of 2025, the original plan was to have 2 K-9s working in Bennington, and we believe that will happen by the end of July 2025. So that's exciting for us, and we appreciate the support from the community on that. One of the other things that I think is important, we decided to wear our vests tonight because we wanted to show all of you, and I'm going to take mine off and show it to you. We did have a blessing of the badges. These badges are brand new, and we joined forces with the Bennington Fire Department. As everybody knows, we have a great working relationship. Our new badges are designed to honor and recognize the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bennington. In the center of the badge is the Bennington Battle Monument, and when I pass this to Jeffrey and then he passes it all the way down, if you kind of twist it a little bit, you'll see the great detail in the monument. And I'm explaining this for the folks at home that cannot see this. Soon enough you will see it, and there is the Bennington Battle flag as well as the Green Mountain Boys flag on here, and this badge design took some time. We went back and forth with a company called Symbol Arts out of Utah, and they helped us with this, and it was 7 attempts before we finally decided that this was it. So if you don't mind, Ms. Carroll, I'm going to approach Jeffrey, and I'm going to let you all see this. And we're very proud of it. There were a lot of folks that had a hand in it, and the fire department version of the badge, it has red highlights, and the police department version is blue. And every member of the Bennington Fire Department, active member, received the badge on Saturday, as well as members of the Bennington Police Department. It's interesting because Father Kevin Russo from the St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church here on Main Street presided over our ceremony. We had prayers read. Kimberly Krozik, who you all know and have met, she's been here. Our communications specialist did offer the communications prayer. Lieutenant Grandy offered the policeman's prayer, and our very own Scott Richmond offered the prayer on behalf of firefighters. And we were very excited to have that happen, and Father Kevin Russo blessed all of the badges before we handed them out. and it's a badge that will be worn now through the Battle Day 2027, at which time the fire chief and police chief probably will decide to retire them after that Battle Day parade event. So we will be wearing these for just over 2 years, and we're really looking forward to having people in our community see the badges and know what they're all about. We did have a discussion on Saturday about the Battle of Bennington, and we do require our people when they come in for oral boards, when they come in the first time, if they don't know anything about Bennington and the Battle of Bennington, on their second interview, they must know something about that, because we are very proud of that. The badge, again, has the Bennington Battle Monument, just like our patch, and that is a true symbol, and something that everyone knows Bennington for. So that's kind of a little bit of a rundown on what happened on Saturday. I think that there were a lot of proud people, some of the older folks from the fire department and people that have been in the police department for quite some time, knowing the history, and are proud to wear this badge to recognize the Battle of Bennington anniversary. You all know it's a state holiday, and I think that's another highlight too, and we're really looking forward to getting some positive feedback, we hope, from the community, both on the fire and police side, about these badges and what they stand for. So this this month we also we had some great training. Owl Kill Rod and Gun Club over in White Creek, New York. We don't always we can't find a place before anybody asks. We don't have a place in Vermont where we can shoot low light and nighttime. So despite the fact that Hale Mountain Fishing Game Club is very supportive of law enforcement in Bennington County, we're just not able to shoot there. So we were able to do some firearms training over at Owl Kill, and that went very well. So it was low light, no light, cold weather, and I know you're all going to laugh and say, cold weather, Chief, it's been in the 40s. Yeah, we know, but boy, Tuesday it poured, and not enjoyable, but we learned a lot. So, you know, we're just, we're really moving forward. We're at the start of the new calendar year, and we're more than halfway through our current fiscal year. As some of you heard me talk about last night, what's most important, and that I really want to get the message out on, is Tuesday's a big day in Bennington. Lots of people running for select board seats, and the other piece of it is the town of Bennington budget. We've worked really hard to keep the budget reasonable, and that's thanks to Mr. Hurd and members of the select board and others that have department managers and our finance director, and we are asking that people go out and support the budget. On the police side of things, just a couple of highlights. This is not a budget session, but we are looking for funding this year to have a clinician placed at the Bennington Police Department full-time. Right now it's just part-time, and we really want to have somebody there full-time, and that's one of the highlights of the police department budget. So we ask that people do come out and vote and support the town budget. And then lastly, I always try to end on a positive note, but I do want to let you know that we did have another officer decide that he was going to leave the Bennington Police Department and go work for a much smaller police agency where there's a lot less to do, and you know, and once again, we're looking at benefits, we're looking at money, we're looking at shift differential and things like that. And this is a good officer, and unfortunately he's, you know, decided to move on, and I still support him. I think he was great in his short tenure here, but you know, not hiding it, completely transparent, this will put us down 6 at the end of this month. His last day with us is on Saturday, and then he'll be starting at the other agency next week. So I share that with you so that you don't hear it someplace else, but I think it's important, and that we start a dialogue, you know, or continue our dialogue rather, with the town manager, the assistant town manager, and it has nothing to do with the change in the select board, but we're going to wait and see who the new chair of the select board is, and I think that we need to have some serious conversations about, how we recruit and retain. Last night I talked about it. I mean, you drive over to Albany, there's billboards, there's electronic billboards, because there's a police agency over there looking for 80 police officers. We're looking now for 6, and it's a challenge. We heard a little bit last night about, the medical profession as well. Nurses, jump and ship from the hospital here or going to different departments within the hospital. It's a challenging time right now, and all we can do is hope and pray and hope that things turn around a little bit. We heard from the state police last night that they're down over 50 troopers here in Vermont, and we have to find a way to get people interested in law enforcement again. And so I think I'll stop there. I've taken my time, and I would love to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, first of all, thank you, and we'll talk more about the forum later, but thank you for participating in the forum. And I'm happy to hear that, especially after the conversations last evening, that there is a full-time clinician included in the budget this year for the police department. I think the intersection of public safety and public health is just, it's critical, and I hope that and again, we'll talk about it in the forum after, but in some of the future meetings, we can get Ben Stats and Situation Table and Project Alliance back to do a little bit more education on the collaboration that's going on in the community. And then while we're talking about community and community policing, I had heard that, or a couple of us may have heard that there was an incident where there was a person who was perhaps a frequent shoplifter, and one of the officers worked with that person to bring them to the new free store on Main Street instead of arresting them. And I just think that that's a great example of community policing, and I don't know if that's something you can share about.
I can.
It's something that I heard.
It is true. One of the officers on the day shift, Nicholas Jones, went to a bigger box store here in Bennington. A person was committing the act of retail theft, clothes, and the officer explained to the individual that there was no reason to commit retail theft because there was a new store established on Main Street in Bennington at the old M&T Bank, and it would be best if the person went there and selected items from there and wouldn't have to pay for them, and they also wouldn't be charged with a crime. The person did accept the ride and did actually go into the establishment, and that's one of the things that people need to understand. That we talked a little bit about it last night. I mean, if we can find ways to help people instead of putting them in the system, that is the better way of doing things. And I don't condone what they were doing by any stretch of the imagination, but if this person legitimately needed clothing and needed assistance, there are places for you to go in Bennington. You have to learn more about them, and that's how we prefer to do things, is to educate people and then get that assistance that they need. In this case, it was clothing. So, we commend the officer for that, and it's happening more often than not. If things are available to folks and we can get you to that location, I mean, we drop the person off. I mean, we didn't wait for them to shop and then take them home or give them a ride or whatever, but we did give them a ride to the establishment so they could get the things that they possibly needed, and they were free, and there was no charges, right? So I think that's one of the things that people forget that the police do, is we try to find alternatives, instead of trying to just jack people up. And I think that's important. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is a true story and it did happen, and more officers are understanding that if we do have people that are committing retail theft, whether it's food or clothes. I mean, there are pantries, there are places available, and we're trying to educate people to do the right thing. And I know some people, I don't want to wait in line. Well, you know, let's wait in line instead of getting into trouble, because when you show up for arraignment, you're definitely waiting in line, right? So those are things that we need to think about, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because it is a true story.
Oh, good. Thanks. Any other questions from?
Yeah, I just had one question. Is the housing situation any better for new officers that can potentially be employed in Bennington?
Yeah, we actually, that's a great question. We are, after conversations that we've been having, we have been contacted by landlords that do have places available for officers. So by, again, simply having conversations, people are reaching out. And right now, I on my list, one place was taken by an officer, and then I've got 2 other locations that are available. We just have to find people to fill the ranks and fill those apartments. So, yeah, so great question.
Jean?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I hope you saw the cover of the annual report. Have you seen it yet?
I have. We provided that photo.
Great.
I am
It's Gracie.
extremely pleased with that. So on the cover of the Bennington Town Report, it's in loving memory of Gracie, and it's a beautiful photo that Rob took of Gracie. And if you haven't seen it, you know, the town meeting is coming up. I'm sure that there'll be copies here. It's an amazing photo, and you know, again, we can't say enough. You know, it's even when we went, I left this part out, even when we went up to Mount Pelier, you know, we had some great coverage with the Bennington banner. They took some amazing photos. They put photos in a couple of times, and you know, it's nice to see the support from the community for Gracie, for Rob, for the members of the police department, and we look forward to the continued support as we move forward. So.
Any other? Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. I do want to just say one last thing. We are gaining in finishing up training for members of CPARB. It's great to see some of you out and about in the police car, you know, putting on body armor and just getting out there and working alongside the officers. And you know, your time in communications will be interesting as well, and I appreciate your willingness to work with Lieutenant Grandy to get all of that accomplished, so thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the CPARB resolution update. And basically, the only update is that Kate and I, after our meeting in January where we approved the changes, we then went to the Bennington Select Board and they approved the changes, so the updated resolution has been signed by the Select Board and is now posted on our webpage.
I do need to contact Jonah, because I realized today that the goals and activities that are listed on our page are still from the old one.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that he uses the new goals and activities on the page.
So that was really the only update on the resolution?
Yep.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the CPARB suggested charter change. So as Chief Doucette mentioned, there's town meeting next week. There's also voting, and Article 7 on the ballot pertains to CPARB. And it reads, shall the charter of the town of Bennington be amended to add a section 103-3039 to subchapter 3 as follows? Number 9, delegate the responsibility to review video footage, transcripts, and other materials following an investigation of a complaint against the police department to the existing Community Policing Advisory Review Board or to another board established by the Select Board to replace the Community Policing Policing Advisory Review Board. There's a typo on that. So, a little history. Back in, I want to say about 2018, there was some conversations around town. There was an organization called the International Association of the Chiefs of Police, the IACP, that came in and did a report. And as a result of that report, the Bennington Select Board, and Jean, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I was not involved in any of this. The Bennington Select Board pulled together or assigned a safety and equity task force. And that safety and equity task force went all throughout the community and tried to interview as many people as they could. And then they gathered and they came back with a list of recommendations for the select board. The select board took those recommendations. They also looked at state law, what was allowed, what wasn't, and as a result of that, CPARB, the Community Policing Advisory and Review Board, was established. And the purpose of that board was to help with communication and looking at complaints after the fact. We are not an investigative board at all. That was not the intention of the select board. And after, and Jeff and Scott were on the board with the beginning, so if you want to add anything. When we first got established, we had thought, well, we were going to be able to look at some video recordings, body camera video, and things like that if needed. And it was determined that we weren't allowed to because of something called Dillon's Law. And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not even going to try to begin to explain that. But so we weren't able to do, some of those things that we maybe thought we could. It was never, it was never meant to be oversight and investigative. So now we're fast forwarding a couple of years. We really haven't had the amount of complaints that people had thought there might be when 2018, 2019 came along. And the Charter Review Committee was tasked with looking at giving CPARB more autonomy, which meant a little bit more independence, a little bit more self-governing. And kind of what came back was oversight, and the select board did not go with that recommendation, but they did go with the recommendation to delegate the responsibility to review the video footage to our board or to another board if the select board chooses to disband us. There has been conversation out that CPARB has said that they should be disbanded. That is not accurate. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified. If the other members want to speak for themselves, they're more than welcome to, but I personally think that we've tried to go out and do community outreach. We've tried to do several listening sessions around the community. We've been welcomed by a lot of organizations. We still have to earn the trust of some organizations to try to be able to do that. But we thought it would be right to put Article 7 on the ballot so that the board can discuss it, and then if anybody here had questions, we could talk about that and what that means. So does anybody want to add to that?
I guess Jean, go ahead.
You can go.
The only thing I was going to add is that if it does in fact pass, it still needs to be approved by the legislature.
Yeah, and the governor.
And then approved by the governor.
Mm-hmm.
So, which suggests that our process here would continue at least for another year. Maybe longer, but at least another year. So at least until the end of '26. Just because of the time frame that takes. So I just want to point that out in terms of whether or not or how it might affect the tenure of those folks who are currently on the board.
What would happen if we saw a video and we disagreed with what the police department conclusion came to? I mean, do we have to be involved with?
I mean, I think that those are things that have to be dealt with if it gets approved by the governor.
Yeah.
I don't think it behooves us to speculate about how things might work, what all of that might mean, because I think that there would need to be, from the select board and from town council, strong guidance about the framework of that. I would, and this is an assumption on my part, so I'm pretending to know here. The issue is that I'm assuming that it would be an executive session, that those would not be in a public forum like we have here. But even so, again, speculation, we don't know, there's too much unknown about that. But I think it's just in terms of time frame for us to be clear about how this isn't something that's going to automatically be instituted, implemented, if the town decides it approves it. It's got a lot of steps ahead of it. And, and it's hard to know how the legislature, because given a year, right, there's elections and all kinds of other things that go on that changes that culture and focus of that body and the governor. So, but Jean, you had a question.
Yeah, there was just one other piece of history that happened, I'm going to guess 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, where the select board was the body that reviewed body cam footage and so on and so forth. And we felt completely unprepared. It was not a fun situation to be in, and none of us felt like we were the proper entity to be able to do that. So that was just another piece of the history. And there was one other thing that I wanted to mention. I also think that if the charter changes, if any of these pass and they have to go through those steps, I think I'm accurate when I say they won't necessarily be thrown out. They also may make changes to clarify things or along the way. So it's not all or nothing. It could be modified in some way.
And that's why I say it's not appropriate for us or helpful at all for us to speculate on that future because of all the uncertainties in it. And the fact that the recommended charter change includes that this might be a different committee, I think is also important because of the expertise that's needed, as you suggest, that folks would need to have some kind of a legal background. And none of us have that background, at least as we're currently composed of. So anyway, enough said about that.
I had a question.
Sure.
It says to delegate the responsibility to review video footage, which I assumed it was delegating it from the select board, but it's, who reviews it now?
We would.
You
The
still
select
do?
board.
The select board still does?
It hasn't come
Okay.
nothing's come to us, but if
Okay.
something did,
Yeah.
until there's another method or
So it is-
another system in play or board in
Yeah.
place, then it would be the select board.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
is. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other?
I think the chief.
If you don't mind, I just want to make sure that we all have a very clear understanding. I've spoken about this once before. We've been through a lot as a community. The police department has been through a lot. I think that we've made necessary changes. We've been completely compliant with the requests from the community for the Community Policing Advisory Review Board. We've seen change in the Community Policing Advisory Review Board in the couple of years that it's been here. You know, it's almost like a revolving door where we've seen faces change. And we work hard to educate people because, as we're hearing tonight, you know, it's difficult for people that don't know anything about law enforcement to make decisions about actions that a law enforcement officer may have taken or failed to take. So we have systems in Vermont currently that are set up so that we have to have an internal affairs investigation policy. We have to adhere to that. We take our internal affairs investigations currently, we share them with members of the Community Policing Advisory Review Board, redacted. So we don't put people's names out there so that we don't embarrass people, so on and so forth. Any type of violation that could be considered an Act 56 violation is forwarded to the Vermont Police Academy. They have a subcommittee, they have an investigator, and they take a look at these things. And I think it's important that people in Bennington know that there are avenues for police misconduct or alleged police misconduct to be looked at. Every one of my supervisors is trained in internal affairs investigations. That wasn't always the case. And again, we've taken these great steps. We've spent a lot of money to make sure that people are educated. This isn't a course where you just go and sit for 2 days. It's a week long. I've been twice. I've been to Roger Williams University. I've been to FBI LEDA. There are exams. There's papers that you have to write. It's like being back in college. And, you know, you educate yourself, and we do the best that we can here. We collect, when there is a complaint, as you all know, we take the information, we look at it, we review it. We don't find our people not at fault, or we don't always find unfounded. In 2024, we did have a situation that needed to be looked at, and there was discipline. An officer went for retraining. So we're making sure that we're adhering to what our internal affairs policy calls for. We're following our union working agreement. We're following the personnel manual as provided by the town of Bennington, and we're making things happen. And we hold people accountable. Some of these investigations take days. It's not like you just get a complaint form and say, that didn't happen, and you file it. There's got to be backup documentation that we retain in the office. And, you know, as we go on in years to come, you'll hear more about complaints or actions that we felt needed to be looked at. So I'm just sharing with you that we feel that we're very responsible in making sure that the Community Policing Advisory Review Board is getting the information that we can provide so that you all can make decisions. I have not once stood here in front of you and told you what to do or what to say. I simply present the facts. You've all had the opportunity to ask questions, and I think that this system works. We created a policy and a procedure so we were able to do this, and I think that's what people need to take into consideration. I'm not going to stand here and tell people how to vote, but I will tell you, I don't want to be like the Burlington Police Department. I don't want a third of my people or half of my people to disappear. I don't want the town to have to offer huge bonuses to try to get people back. You know, we need to be reasonable about this. We need to look at the big picture, and we need to have people make decisions on what they think should happen. And all I'm asking is that in the next few days, before you come to the firehouse to vote, that you educate yourselves on how we do things, how Act 56 works, how the Academy has a subcommittee and then a full criminal justice council for review if it needs to go that far. And there's also an opportunity for an officer to have a hearing in front of the criminal justice council if the council feels that's necessary. So there's a lot going on in Vermont that is for the better. and that's all occurred in the last few years. So please take the time to educate yourselves on all of that, and for the people at home too. And that's really what I want to say. Act 56, take a look at it and understand how the procedures work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do. I think it's, I think what the select board put in place a couple of years ago to collaborate with the police department, I think it's a good thing. I think sometimes it's, there's not a whole lot of data or complaints to go through and analyze, and so you just try to get out and talk with people. But I just think that when we collaborate and we work together, I think that helps with staffing and retention. We're down 6 officers. I think it's important to support the police department. So any other comments on the suggested charter change? Scott?
Yeah, I just don't understand why this would be posed to people in the community that aren't educated in this area, and then have people that aren't educated in that area be looking at the footage. How did this get on the ballot?
It was, and Jean, please correct me if I'm wrong, it came about through the select board with different things that they wanted to have discussed for possible consideration to be changed for the charter, and a committee was established, and they went and spoke with some people and came back with a report.
The only thing I would say is the items that were researched by the Charter Review Committee came from the community. They did not come from the select board. Yeah. So a community member, and I don't know who that was, raised this issue and asked them to do research, which they did, and they came up with this.
Well, what they came up with was recommendations for an oversight board with investigative, the ability to get a turn. That's what they actually recommended to the select board.
Oh,
this is what the select board decided to come. They didn't go, like when the I don't know how to, I'm older, so you get like, when we were a kid, we used to get the Sears Christmas wish books or something like that. You'd look through it and you'd be like, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. So the Safety and Equity Task Force came through with a whole list of things that they wanted, but the select board didn't give them everything that they wanted. And the Charter Review Committee, the report tries to put some of that stuff that they originally wanted back in. That was not the intention. Even if CPARB were to get the ability to look at the videos and stuff, it would have to be an executive session. I get concerned about the lack of transparency after everything that we do has been out front in meetings, but it's my understanding that the ultimate decision on anything would still be with the select board. We would not make any decisions, even if we were to review the video footage and say, hey, we don't agree with this, we could only bring that back to the select board, and then the ultimate authority and everything still results with the select board.
And I'm curious, if there was when the select board had to review the video, we were in agreement with the conclusion that the police department had come to. If that had not happened, if we disagreed with your conclusion, then it would have gone to the next level. Is that accurate? To be reviewed.
Ultimately, we would have taken that and we would have sent that off to the police academy,
right?
Or the Criminal Justice Council,
right?
For review, and ultimately, in that particular case, there were, we did our internal affairs investigation, we presented it, and the board agreed with our findings, and that's where we left it. That was the civilian review that was required. If there was a thought process that we had faltered, we would have packaged that up and sent it up to the police academy for review for potential Act 56 violations. So. Yeah, so there are other options.
Basically, this charter change would remove the responsibility of reviewing footage and dealing with a complaint, it would move it from the select board to this board or a replacement board that does a similar function. That's all it really does. Because from my experience, this board would be way more educated and able to do a better assessment of the footage than the select board did.
And just one other piece, we did, you're fine.
Thank you.
Kelly and I and Vicki met with members of the Charter Review Committee. I attended 5 of their meetings so that I could answer any questions they had about our processes and how we, our relationship with the department and our efforts to educate the community about that, and what our focus and how we interpreted what community policing meant in action, and other aspects in terms of our efforts at accountability and transparency, equity, safety, et cetera, inclusion. And so, but this is what the Charter Review Committee recommended. And so, and I know that the language was a bit changed from the recommendation from the Charter Review Committee, that the Select Board changed it somewhat. But I think that our sense of this is that, and when I say our sense, I'm thinking of Kelly and I in particular, because we've talked a lot about this, and what it would mean for us as a group, and in terms of our understanding of our collective expertise. And while we are more educated about, potentially more educated about the legal ends of and operations of the police department, I still would feel really uncomfortable and don't feel like I have sufficient expertise to be able to do any kind of judgment in reviewing video on evidence. I would have no clue. And I'm not sure I want to have a clue, so.
I don't think, none of us were lawyers either.
Yes.
And I don't think you need to have a legal background to be a better board, a better group of people to view the video. I don't think you need to be a lawyer. I think you just need to have, I think collective knowledge was a really good term, but a legal background I don't think was necessary. I didn't feel that was the reason why we were very uncomfortable.
Okay.
So.
But as
But
chief,
see, no, I'm sorry. I just want to add, when the select board gets together, you have the ability for legal counsel. Okay, we have extra education. We've had some extra training and some ride-alongs. But I think if you're going to if this goes through and you're going to look at possibly replacing CPARB, then I think that you need to consider making one of the 7 somebody with an HR, a law enforcement,
or have access to.
Or something to that, or, like you said, or access to it. I've heard that other communities who have oversight boards have access to private attorneys at the cost of about $250 an hour. That can potentially go to a lot of money. I mean, you can't predict the future, but it can potentially be expensive.
No one's talking about replacing this board. The only reason that language is in there is in case the name changes or the structure changes. You can't, a policy has to be a little bit flexible.
Yeah,
and if it only talked about this particular board with this particular name, it's not flexible enough. That's all that's in there for.
It does say replace. So I'm just saying that I understand it.
Well,
but,
okay. I don't think that was not the intent.
It's just that is part of the,
That's part of Article 7.
Recommendation here.
Oh, I see it right here. But
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think we want to belabor this, just because there's so many unknowns.
But, yes,
So,
Well, also, if like Chief Doucette said, if it was considered a citizen's review and there was a question, there's a backup plan for it to go to a higher level. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kelly, I just wanted to point out, if the board had more oversight and that changed requirements for being on the board, I would hope that we wouldn't lose the ability to have everyday members of the town participate.
Oh, I would hope not.
Because,
Yeah,
well,
no.
if we're thinking about lawyers,
I'm just saying,
HR, like those are people that would have to be, if this was passed, it might take away from an everyday person in town feeling comfortable participating in the board. So I just think that that should be part of this thought process as well, because I feel like that is the crux of a lot of the reason why the board works.
yeah. And I don't think that all 7 people have to have
Yeah.
specific
I
requirements.
understand.
But, like if you look at the State Police Advisory Commission, there's 7 of them. They're from the community. Now, they are appointed by the governor, so that's a little bit different. But one has to have a legal background in law enforcement, and one has to be a lawyer. The other 5 don't. And I'm not saying you have to go to that.
I completely agree that if there is oversight power, that there would have to be requirements.
to be.
But that would definitely change the makeup of a board.
Correct. So, yes. Yep. So. Anything else? Okay. Next we have up is traffic safety data, and I'm going to turn that over to Kate.
okay. I have combined all 12 data sets. So now I have over 2,000 cases, which is very cool. A lot of it, though, is alphanumeric. So I need to recode it so that I can sort of dig into things. But overall, and so one of the things I want you to think about, I'm going to give you the names of the variables that are there, so we can think about what we want to know from that data, okay? The majority, their sex, the majority of people are male. Race, the majority of people are white. The age, it was really interesting, it's 14 to 94. In terms of, which is like, whoa, that's quite a range. And abilities. I mean, when you think of a 14-year-old and a 94-year-old. Anyway, the reason for the stop, whether it was a vehicle violation, et cetera, whether or not there was a search, the stop outcome, so for example, a warning, a ticket, or arrest with a warrant. And then I created a variable where I could see month rather than, because I actually have the dates, but it's too granular for us. So I have, so we could tell if there's a higher volume or more vehicle or more tickets in a certain month or a certain season. But I would like to know what you want to know so that I can direct my analysis.
Is there a way to tell, state that the person is licensed in? No. I didn't think so.
No, there is data in there about where the stop occurred, but again, it's really granular. I've got an address in Old Bennington or North Bennington or Town of Bennington, but it's like a one-off, right? We're not going to see repeats in there. So no, I don't, that's not available to the department. So when you think about, because we're supposed to examine this, right? We're supposed to have some sense of what the meaning of this is for the town, for us. And which is why I wanted to tell you what I at least found at a cursory review, right? So, I mean, would it be helpful for you to know the distribution of ethnicity? I mean, there's not that many people. It's white, black, Asian, Pacific Islander, and other.
I think that would only be relevant if then we could look at the percentage or the makeup for the town and
Yeah.
compare the two percentages, which might be interesting to do. You did say that the outcome, so like moving violation, equipment, that might be interesting.
Okay. Do you want to take a look at that compared to sex? You know, male, female?
And I say that because we know that a lot of residents struggle with income. So if
Okay.
we're seeing a high rate of equipment, equipment malfunction or like
Yeah.
defective equipment,
Yeah.
then that may inform, okay, you know, is there a social service program out there that can help people with their vehicle repairs?
Okay.
And
So-
make that more known to people.
Right. I can do that by sex. I can create a category of age. And because it's so young at 14, you know, I'll take a look at what makes sense in terms of maybe maturity, you know, like 20 to 30, so whatever makes sense in that. As I said, there's over 2,000 cases. So, you know, we've got the information there. Did you want it by ethnicity, by race?
Well, I
Would
think,
that be, I mean,
Well,
for most of the part, most people are going to be white, so.
That's going to be hard because we wouldn't have a denominator of whether they're in town or
yeah,
out of town.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, that's
is
just
Yeah,
it.
there's no denominator,
what
so
proportion
it would
are
mean
people
nothing.
passing through
Exactly.
versus
Yeah.
local. So to compare it to the town population, you'd need the town population plus anyone that would be passing through, which there's no way
You
to
can't
know
know.
it. So it's very difficult to see
Okay.
if it makes sense.
Yeah, because what we have is we'll have location of the violation, location of the stop.
Yeah.
And that doesn't tell us anything about where that person actually lives.
No. That makes it.
So race would mean nothing
Yeah.
because we wouldn't have a denominator.
Well, all I meant was.
I mean, you could have more of a certain race than we have in Bennington.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so if we do sex and age by outcome, okay, anything else?
And the
Did you want to
equipment.
know the month?
The outcome.
The outcome, yeah. Oh, that was that. Okay.
Yeah. So by outcome. So if I do just crosstabs like I've done before, right? So outcome by sex, outcome by age. Do you want anything to do with the month that it occurred? I don't know that it's useful or not for our purposes. I mean, one of the challenges I think that we as a board face is that there's this goal around safety and need, right? And without having access to the town where people live, the state where they live, it's really hard for us to know. And just because somebody was stopped at a certain location, we don't have where they actually live. So it doesn't have meaning to us. So in terms of trying to use this data to direct any kind of effort around need or identification of need in the community, probably is not right. I mean,
Unless,
thinking about it.
unless you could document equipment failure, as Lindsay was saying.
Well, we don't have equipment, well, we have, I mean, there's, I'm trying to pull back my memory. I don't know that there's equipment failure in there. I think that there's something to do with, you know, a vehicular trouble, you know, in some way. But, so I'd have to dig into it a little bit more to tease some of that out. But I can certainly bring those two things to you when we meet we meet in April. But I just wanted to think about whether or not there was anything else that you wanted me to look at, Jean.
I am next to ignorant about this. Is there time of day? Would that be interesting to know?
Well, you would have to give me some sense of this because it's, again, granular. So like I have, the time might be .43, which is one of the first things on January 1st, which is right after the new year, right? Because it's a 24-hour clock. So .43 is not quite 1 minute after 12. And I've got over 2,000 of things like that.
Holy cow.
So, I mean, I can it's the fun of data, which is why you're not seeing any of it tonight. Because sometimes you just got to walk away. So I could try to do something like that.
You don't have to do anything. I was just curious if analyzing different times of the day would be valuable, that's all.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the level of data collection that the department has and that they record. And I think that certainly on my side, it's underappreciated. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. And again, to what end for us? And because it's not like we have control over department scheduling and when officers are on the street or where they are or any of that. We'd have no control of that, nor do we want it. So any other thoughts on that? If not, that's what I'll bring back in April. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Next on the agenda is just a brief little wrap-up discussion of our Public Safety Forum last evening. I want to thank everybody who participated in our forum, those who are panelists, everyone who came out, who watched it on CAT TV. Thank you, CAT TV. Thank you to the Bennington Fire Department for letting us have the event here, and to the Y for providing childcare. Just a little wrap up. I'll go and then I'll send it to you. I thought it went well. I thought that we ran out of time, I think because of that we did skip over a little bit about what CPARB does and their role or our role, and that was so that we could allow questions from the audience. And from people, or, the people that were attending. We did have a pamphlet. We did ask for evaluations, and Kate has some of that information. It's my hope that that will be the first in a series of forums, and hopefully there'll be another one in the fall where maybe you'll be able to take a look at the next phase in public safety with perhaps Department of Corrections, Probation and Parole, Public Defender, Center for Restorative Justice, Turning Point, and possibly the legislatures. And I know there was some comments last night that it would be nice to have the state legislators involved, and we did think about that. Originally, when we started with the forum, we had about 9 people that we wanted on the panel, and realized soon that that would not be effective time-wise. So, and we did consider asking some of the legislators, but they were in session in Montpelier. So hopefully if there's one in the fall, they should have hopefully a little more availability. So, Kate, do you want to give some of your feedback?
We got 15 evaluations back, and so easy enough to put together a small data set just to record the outcomes of that. I have copies. I brought the actual filled out evaluations in case anybody wants to refresh their memory on it. But the evaluations asked people to rate their understanding, what they got out of, how well they think the various aspects were achieved. And they rated from 1, which was poor, to 10, that was very good. So this is just the raw numbers. As you can see, the improved understanding of the crime rate was low. And there are a few 2s in there and 4 towards the bottom of the small table that you've got, where people felt that it did not achieve that goal. But overall, lots of 10s, lots of 9s across in terms of the evening, right? And the other, as Kelly pointed out, we really didn't get a chance to talk at all about the role of CPARB. So there was one individual who didn't even complete that question. Just didn't think it had achieved it all. And we've got 1 and a couple of 3s in there, so another 7. We did ask for comments about topics that folks might want to have in the future. And so there were just 3 suggestions, so I'll just let you know what those are. What to watch for in neighborhoods for crime prevention. And that the legislators need to be invited to the next forum, which Kelly suggested, and that it was useful to look at the process and where pinch points are. UCS rep was particularly helpful as she gave thoughtful perspectives and expanded the understanding of the bigger picture. So I guess that was just an overall positive comment. But I wanted to get these to you right away since there were so few of them. But I think overall, we were able to achieve our goals. For those who, 15, you can't take a lot out of it, but my sense is that there were over 15 people that were there.
Yeah.
And that attended, so. Any thoughts, comments? Certainly I think the topic of the violent crime rate is a tricky one, right? Because there continues to be violent crime. It's not like, and I don't know how well-informed we are as individual members of the community to really track it all, right? So I think it's hard for us to really see whether it's up or down. But again, that's a comparison. So it's all relative to kind of like where you sit is where you stand.
It's subjective, kind of, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But any thoughts or comments about that?
So I talked to Kelly about it a little bit earlier, but I thought it was fantastic. Sitting out there was really nice, and being able to listen to these people that are dealing with this daily. I learned a lot. I wrote a lot of notes, questions that I wrote down that I will research and try to get the answers for. The fact that there's no juvenile detention center in the state of Vermont was an eye-opener, and I do know people that work in some of the youth programs in town, and I see them get assaulted by 13-year-old children and 14-year-old kids and get sent to the hospital, and there's no place to send them. So that was really an eye-opener. The youth offenders and, as the police were explaining, they send these teenagers up here from other states and do these violent crimes, and they get released because there's no place to put them. And then they come right back again. So that was kind of an eye-opener, but I thought it was fantastic. I did talk to the Officer Coots, is that what his name was, the state policeman? So I talked to him briefly, thanked him for coming, and like I said, I thought it was fantastic. It's probably the best thing we've ever done. So.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I learned so much last night.
I encourage everyone to use last night as a starting point for education. We, being Vermont, we've got some challenges. We have a lot of challenges with the intersection of public safety and mental health. I think that last night was a great start to opening up some more conversation, around that. And I hope that the forums will continue. I mean, I've listened, I pay attention a lot to what's going on up in Montpelier. And on February 12th, Governor Scott had a press conference about a public safety omnibus bill that was being presented to the state legislature the next day. And that includes, there's 10 different items, I'm not going to remember them all, but they are trying to address raise the age, which for those people that don't know about it, it increases the age of accountability. It's supposed to go all the way up to 24. Right now it's about up to 22. And it increases with a person's birthday, and they are held to a lower standard for crime accountability. They're also looking at providing more guidance or less ability for some of the judges to reduce sentences for violent crime. They're looking at people who are out on conditions and who keep violating the conditions of release, and they end up with like 50, 60, 200, 1,000, and that's not an exaggeration. There's someone in the state that has over 1,800 charges or incidents. And the important thing to remember about this is that these bills are looking at the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Health and Human Services and having them work together. So it's taking prevention and education and putting that in with some of those changes. So I encourage people to educate themselves on that, because there needs to be some legislative changes before some of the people who were on this side of the panel last night can do some of the changes that they'd like to do. And for those of you that listened, you heard that there was a lot with intervention and diversion in trying to do that. So I think it's important that they're starting to collaborate, and I think that is something we can all learn from. And I really think that having the crisis clinicians embedded in the Vermont State Police and the Bennington Police Department are crucial. We, as a community, have so much trauma that comes through, but so do our first responders, and they all need to have the ability for that, whether it's rescue, fire, or the police department. So I thought it was a great discussion last night, and I hope it continues. All right. So if no one has any other comments on the Public Safety Forum, next is upcoming agenda items. One thing I did forget to mention with the CPARB resolution is with the passing of that, CPARB is going to go to meeting every other month on the even months. So our next meeting will be Thursday, April 24th at 6 p.m. in the firehouse here in that room. But as far as upcoming agenda items, we will go and have a follow-up with the traffic data. And possibly some more discussion on the next Public Safety Forum, as well as listening sessions. So it's really important. One of the things that CPARB does is go out into the community, and we meet with different groups in small non-forum or non-quorum numbers for the board. So sometimes it's one, sometimes it's 2 or 3 of us. So if you have an organization, a neighborhood, a group that you would like to sit down and talk with us and talk about community policing and what it means to you, please reach out to us. You can contact us on the town website. We have a link on that. So that's all I have for upcoming agenda items.
I wondered if anybody had ideas right now about locations
For listening sessions.
for our listening sessions. I mean, we sort of tapped out our ideas.
Yeah, I think the hard part is a lot of neighborhoods or communities don't have a central meeting spot. Branch Street I see that a lot on in the scanner and the blotter. I would love to have conversations with people in that neighborhood about, how they feel if public safety concerns, but a central meeting point, I don't know what that would be.
Are there any churches?
No. Yeah, I don't know what a central meeting place would be, but it does seem to pop up a lot. Yeah. And I think a lot of neighborhoods don't have a central meeting place. Hi.
So I do. I think that it would be fantastic to contact the chief of the Bennington Rural Fire Department and see if you can use the Beach Street Firehouse.
Yes.
They have a little meeting room there, and they have tables and chairs. That might be pretty fantastic. And then if you want to go a little bit to the north and west, the YMCA would be a fantastic location also. There's a lot of people that use that. But if you want a location that's a little more quiet, I definitely would recommend the Bennington Rural Fire Department, and for two locations, one being Beach Street, and you can also use the Bennington Rural Fire Department on Orchard Road next to Operation Isaac, and you could get a lot of folks, I think, from Applegate and Willowbrook that might be willing to walk over to the firehouse and use that location as well. I mean, we certainly use the Bennington Fire Department on a regular basis, and and I think that our partners in the Rural Fire Department would be open to this. So I would try that.
I think that Beach Street Fire Department is an excellent idea. Possibly also, I don't know, can we use the high school maybe for the Branch Street? It's in walking distance
We can
for people.
ask.
Yeah.
Have we had one at the hospital with the emergency department?
The hospital emergency department?
I think
For staff.
just really, Scott, you made me turn around on that. That was good. I think that it would be amazing if you could go and listen to the staff at the hospital and see what their thoughts are on crime and violence, and learn about some of the things that they're seeing within the emergency department, as well as on the floors. I know that some of the nurses get frustrated when we just focus on the emergency room, but there are instances where we have to go up on the floors and stuff too, so I would reach out to some folks at the hospital and just see. They have all sorts of meeting rooms there, and I think it would be great if you could listen to some of the staff from the emergency room and some of the nurses and doctors that work in women and children's and other locations, the PACU and things like that. That would be fantastic. So yeah, that's great. Cam had another recommendation right across from the Autumn Inn, almost. There's a church, and maybe that's a location that you could visit as well. So,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
Thanks.
Have you gone to schools? Is PTA still a thing? I have no idea if...
I had spoken with the principal at Bennell, and they were looking at getting it back going, but that was about a year or so ago. PTG?
I decided I would sit closer to the front. So PTA, it's more like PTG, Parent-Teacher Group, and another amazing idea, because all the schools have Parent-Teacher Groups, and very recently at Monument School, the Parent-Teacher Group did a fundraiser for the police department to help us with acquiring a new dog, and so I think that visiting some of the schools, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes, at the start of their parent-teacher group meeting, I think that would be beneficial as well, because you're going to you'll get varying opinions, and it would be a great way to involve the school community as well. Mm-hmm. And don't forget about our school teachers that have we have half days sometimes, or we have in-service days. You could reach out to the superintendent perhaps and find out where the the event is on that particular day when school is closed, or there's just a half a day, and you can go and talk to the teachers. And if you do that, though, please don't forget about all of our little private schools that we have in and around Bennington, and involve them as well.
I don't know if it would be appropriate, but we could reach out to the teachers union, and the paras have a union as well. So I'm sure that they would help us advertise that and pull people together.
Anything else? Any other?
Other agenda item, if we're done
Yep.
with that. We are tasked with our new resolution with identifying training, and that we have to have for new members. And because of how this works, I mean, I know Kelly and Scott, your tenures are up this year in June.
May.
Well, it says June 25. I was hoping you'd stay till the end of June. Since May, yeah, that's what I was hoping. But, because May is an off month, we don't meet. So, I mean, I don't know how that works for tenure, but I thought that maybe we want to at least think about that, since we'll be bringing new members on, and it'd be lovely to get feedback. I mean, I don't know, Scott, if you're going to re-up or not, or Kelly, but it'd be good to have just your feedback about what you think we might need for new members to come on in terms of training, in addition to what is currently, required with open meeting law, et cetera. I don't know how other people think about that, but I just thought that I just like to tease people's brains about what you might like.
I would like to see implicit bias training,
Yeah.
live, not recorded.
Yeah.
Implicit bias training for, the board members,
Yeah.
the community, the other board members. I think that could be,
Yeah, it's just that
Something.
I think we, in addition to that, take a look at what we've had and how it might be, how we might want to fill that out. Since it's part of what we have to do now for the resolution. We have to submit that to the select board, so.
And any training like that, especially implicit bias training, you could invite
Exactly.
many other boards, organizations to
Yep,
join you, yeah.
yep.
anything else for upcoming agenda items? No? All right. Announcements. I have two, and then anybody else can jump in. Just a reminder that we are meeting now every other month, so our next meeting will be April 24th at 6 p.m. And then don't forget, town meeting day is Monday, March 3rd, and voting day is Tuesday, March 4th. So please vote. Any other announcements?
The time for town meeting is it in the evening? I can't remember, sorry.
7 p.m.
7 p.m., is it here? Yeah,
Right
it's
here.
here. Thank you.
No? Okay, well, if nobody else has any other announcements, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Have a great night. Thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you Thursday, April 24th.